Hey, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well and ready to hang out for a while because today I've got something really exciting to talk about. Something that I know so many of you who play No Man's Sky have been waiting to hear about, and that's the latest update, patch 6.05. This one has stirred up a ton of conversation in the community, partly because some of the changes are obvious quality of life fixes that people have been asking for, and partly because a couple of the additions show that Hello Games is still pushing No Man's Sky in new directions, even all these years after launch. It's actually pretty wild when you stop to think about how much this game has evolved. Like, if you played it back in the early days and then stepped away for a while, coming back now would almost feel like you picked up a completely different game. And patch 6.05 is just another step in that never-ending growth. So let's sit back, take our time, and walk through everything this patch brings. I want to make sure I not only explain what's changed, but also chat about how it actually impacts the way we play. Because you know how sometimes you read patch notes and you're like, okay, that looks cool on paper, but then when you're actually in the game, it feels way different, either more impactful or sometimes not noticeable at all. That's the kind of perspective I want to share here, Densiz. Because if you're someone who maybe hasn't updated yet, or you're wondering whether it's worth jumping back in, this breakdown should give you a really solid idea. One of the biggest parts of this patch revolves around Corvettes. And I know Corvettes have become a huge part of the game for people who really like space battles, fleet management, and just that feeling of commanding something larger than your regular ship. They've had their fair share of quirks and issues though, and Hello Games clearly knows that. With this patch, they've put a lot of effort into making Corvettes feel smoother and more polished, which is exactly what fans have been asking for. Now, spacewalking around your Corvette feels way more natural. In the past, it could be clunky and honestly a little frustrating, like you'd be trying to maneuver around it, and the camera or movement would just fight you. With 6.05, those frustrations are pretty much gone, and it feels like the Corvette is finally this majestic ship that you can explore and interact with in a much more seamless way. On top of that, they've improved the teleport markers when it comes to Corvettes on planets. If you've ever dealt with that annoying problem of teleporting and then being completely unsure of where your Corvette actually spawned, you'll know how important this change is. Now the markers are way clearer, way more reliable, so if you're moving between locations and trying to keep track of your Corvette, you're not left scratching your head or scrolling through menus just to locate it. It's the kind of change that doesn't sound massive at first, but it really cuts down on that background frustration we sometimes just accept in games. Another part I really like is how they've made Corvettes spawn correctly in player bases after teleporting. This was one of those buggy little details that could break immersion. Like, imagine you're showing off your base to a friend or just coming home after a long journey, and then your Corvette is either missing or glitched out in some random spot. It felt awkward. But now with 6.05, that's sorted out. Your Corvette behaves the way you'd expect, so everything feels a lot more polished. Now, let's talk about customization, because I know a lot of you love decorating and personalizing your ships and bases, and Hello Games is leaning into that even more. This update introduces new decoration and customization options for Corvettes, including new materials, new color options, and something they call a thermal grill cap structural decoration. It might sound small, but if you're into making your ship truly yours, details like this go a long way. It's not just about combat or travel anymore, it's about expression, and the game has slowly been leaning harder into that side of things. With each new patch, we get more tools to make our ships, bases, and fleets feel like an extension of our personality, which is honestly one of the reasons this game's fresh, no matter how many hours you put in. They've also polished up some of the interior parts of Corvettes. You might not notice it right away unless you're someone who spends a lot of time walking around inside, but trust me, once you see the little tweaks and improvements, you'll appreciate it. Better textures, smoother lighting, small fixes that add up to make the whole interior feel more premium. It's one of those things that shows Hello Games is really paying attention to detail, even in places where they could have just ignored it. Of course, it wouldn't be a No Man's Sky patch without a bunch of bug fixes, and patch 6.05 definitely has those. One of the big ones is with refiners losing materials on Corvettes. If you've ever set up a refining process only to come back and realize your stuff is gone, you know how frustrating that is. This fix should save players a lot of headaches. Another bug that's been fixed had to do with the visibility of players in hidden Corvettes. That was causing some odd multiplayer issues where players wouldn't show up properly, and now that's sorted. Speaking of multiplayer, this patch gives a nice boost to how ships of other players appear. In the past, you might notice some lag or delay before another player's ship actually showed up, and it kind of killed the immersion when you're trying to meet up with someone. Now, Ships pop in way faster, which makes multiplayer feel more alive and connected. It's these subtle things that make No Man's Sky's shared universe feel more believable. There are also fixes in the discovery section, which I'm personally happy about because that's an area that sometimes felt a little rough around the edges. Companion accessories were appearing on wild creatures in the discoveries menu, which made no sense and just looked broken, so that's fixed. They've also taken care of issues with transparency for creatures in that menu, which again just makes everything feel more polished. And group member icons now display the correct colors, which helps when you're coordinating in multiplayer. None of these are massive changes individually, but when you stack them together, they make the whole experience feel smoother. Another cool thing is they added a dismiss freighter option in the quick menu while you're spacewalking. This is one of those things that's super convenient because sometimes you just don't want your freighter hanging around and cluttering the area, and now you can send it away without having to jump through a bunch of menus. It's the kind of quality of life change that just makes sense. They've also tackled an issue with the pulse drive getting stuck when using autopilot near space stations. That's a fix I know a lot of people will be happy about because it could completely break the flow of space travel, and now it's way more reliable. On top of that, there was a problem with dialogue involving Specialist Polo during the Space Anomaly mission, which has been corrected. These little mission fixes are important because story beats are part of what keeps players engaged, and nothing kills immersion faster than broken dialogue or progression issues. For those of you on consoles, this patch also fixes a problem where controller bindings wouldn't save properly. If you've ever spent time setting up your controls just the way you like them, only to have them reset, you know how frustrating that is. Thankfully, that's now fixed. They also made specific visual and memory fixes for Xbox and PS5, which should improve stability and performance on those platforms. And finally, as with most patches, there are general performance improvements, stability tweaks, and optimizations to network traffic. These aren't always the most exciting to read in patch notes, but they're often the most noticeable in day-to-day play. Less lag, smoother transitions, fewer crashes, those are the things that make the game feel like it's running at its best. Now, I want to talk about why this patch matters beyond just the technical details. For me, patch 6.05 feels like a signal from Hello Games that they're still investing in refining the details, not just chasing big, flashy new content. It's easy for developers to get caught up in big expansions and new features while ignoring smaller frustrations, but Hello Games keeps balancing both. They're giving us new customization and visual polish, while also fixing things that make the game smoother and less frustrating. It's this balance that keeps No Man's Sky alive and thriving so many years after launch. When you think about how far this game has come, it's kind of inspiring. Remember the launch days? People were disappointed, frustrated, and honestly thought the game would just fade away. But instead, Hello Games stuck with it, listened to the community, and delivered patch after patch, year after year. Now we're here in 2025 talking about patch 6.05, and the game is still getting meaningful updates. That's rare in the gaming industry, and it shows a level of dedication that deserves respect. So if you've been away from No Man's Sky for a while, maybe this is the patch that convinces you to come back.